everyone. Welcome to this week's staff organizing dinner and happy hour. Yeah, lovely. We have three items on our agenda this morning. Our budget hearing. The first one for 2024 and the approval of 2023 amended budget. We have a discussion with Lauren Rich from CWCB and Greg Felt, their board director, and then we have our evaluations of our general counsel and general manager. Ian, we will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam President, and good morning, directors. We're here this morning to talk about the 2023 amended budget. Only a little different from prior years, where we adopted the amended budget for the current year and approved the proposed budget for next year. At the budget workshop, I talked about maybe holding a special meeting during the holiday season after the results of Proposition HH are known and after we receive the final certification of values from the counties. However, since the budget workshop, the counties have been providing estimated values, assuming HH does pass, which I can use to prepare a budget prior to receiving those final certification from the counties at the very end of December. So typically with our budgets, we receive a preliminary value in August. We use those preliminary values to prepare the budget for the budget workshop. And those same values are used to present the budget at the budget meeting. Then I receive the final certification of values in December 10th usually. And the change from the preliminary to the final has always been very minor. Not enough to affect our mill levy when we were under 2 thirds. So, long story, but what I'm saying is, I don't think we're going to have to hold a special meeting during the holiday season. We have these estimated values provided by the counties, so we should be able to have a meeting in mid to late November after the results of HH are known and so currently today, I'm requesting that the board adopt the following 2023 amendment. Yes, we're having some technical. Oh, sorry.
Open our public meeting. We got a fan running through the stadium.
Recording in progress.
Hello, there's no audio on our end, FYI, if you can hear me.
How about now?
Great.
Here we go.
Okay. Well, good morning, directors. So today staff is requesting that the board adopt the 2023 amended budget resolutions. Unlike previous years where we request the board to amend the current year and adopt the next year's budget, we're just requesting that the board amend the current year. And then after the results of Prop HH are known, we'll have a 2024 budget hearing where we will use the estimated values prepared by the counties for that budget so that we can avoid holding a special budget meeting during the holiday between Christmas and New Year's, basically. So we're asking that the board adopt these resolutions to amend the 2023 budgets and the resolution to transfer the unspent 2023 balances. Are there any questions about Prop HH or the budget or?
Yeah, Director Munger.
Yeah, so I'm confused a little bit again. So first, we ought to we'll take care of the 2023 amended budget. That's fine. I guess, so what numbers are we putting in the 2024 budget for revenue? I mean, we're not changing our expenses. I don't think you guys had any intention, and I don't believe I saw any changes in thought on expenses for 2024, H or no H.
There's one line item that would change, and that is the transfer to the CFP fund. So the normal operating expenditures would not change. You're exactly right. Yep. But that transfer at the end of the year is the number that would change, that would be reduced.
So what number, and when are we, so we're not meeting for a special meeting for the 2024 budget. We're gonna
Until
today?
No, we'll have a special meeting in November.
Okay,
Hopefully either before or shortly after the Thanksgiving holiday. So, because right now I've been provided the estimated numbers from the counties if it passes. So I have those numbers. Now we just need to wait to see what happens in November at the ballot.
so it seems like, and again, I don't know, so I've been in a lot of budgets. County, the rest, but, so it seems if we adopted the higher budget, we would be fine. Even though if the HH passes, that would be a lower revenue budget.
Right.
And again, we know, just like in 2023, we're gonna have an amended budget. We're gonna have an amended budget in 2024.
Yes, we are.
So we know that up front. So I guess I'm just curious. So it seems to me that we ought to, and again, I always get perplexed with finance officers sometimes. We ought to adopt the higher number, the highest number, that allows us to collect up to that number. The mill levy certification is the big thing that we gotta worry about. So, help me here.
Well, our mill is what it is because we went to the voters in
And got deeper into
Not
it.
Hebrews, it is what it is. We don't have to go through that process of, temporarily reducing our mill from the prior years. Does that help?
Yeah, so I guess my question is again, so what revenue number are we gonna be putting in November? HH or no HH,
Well,
or we're gonna do it after we have the consequences of HH?
exactly.
Okay, I'll shut up, thank you.
No problem.
I got it figured out.
Okay. Any other
Better than the rest
questions?
of us.
There's nothing easy to understand.
I was gonna say that you're well done.
Yeah, no question, but just as a reminder, if we have any public on there that we've gone through this in depth, whatever. So it's not just something that popped up this morning. That staff has obviously. It's what-
Thanks for pointing that out. Have a day-long budget workshop. Second, third, 21st. Any other comments, questions?
There aren't.
Do we have anyone from the public who would like to comment on our budget? 2023 amendments or our plan for 2023? No one online and no one in the room, so we will close public hearing on the budget. We have 5 resolutions in front of us. We will adopt those separately. So the first is a resolution to amend the 2023 general fund budget.
So move.
Second. Moved by Gray, second by Whitmore. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Second is a resolution to amend. Moved by Bouchard, second by Evans.
Aye.
Aye.
The third is a resolution to amend 2023 Hendrick, Haas.
Aye.
Motion passes. Fourth is a resolution to amend the 2023 enterprise fund budget. Moved by Curry, second by Rover. All those in favor?
Aye.
Finally, we have a resolution to transfer unspent 2023. Moved by Haas, second by Vanderpool. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Yeah, you got off way too easy.
Sorry you had to go to such lengths to avoid us in September.
I look forward to our next meeting in November.
We could, yeah.
At 9.
Right. Well, in terms of the future meetings, we'll just take that real quickly. Our next, as Ian just said, we don't have it scheduled yet, but we would anticipate a meeting in mid to late November. Probably, my guess actually would be the week after Thanksgiving. Schedule that remotely unless the board determines otherwise, but that would be our official 2024 budget hearing and request for approval of the budget documents for 2024 pending the HH outcome. Then we have that regular, well, before we, just in chronological order, CRUA is December 13th through 15th. We have received indications that several of our board members want to go. I think registration is still open, so if there's any board member who has not signed up who wants to, please contact Stephanie and she can work with you. Water Congress,
Different hotel this year.
it is a Paris hotel.
It's at the Paris.
No, Paris.
Paris. Did you say Paris?
I said Paris.
I thought you said Harris, which is not at all like Paris.
So I said Paris.
All right.
P-A-R-I-S.
It's still not Paris.
Still not like Paris.
Too many.
There's nothing like Paris.
Now I want to go see that.
It might be an overly priced croissant. but
Yeah.
other than that,
That's about it, right? No, it, you know, should be an interesting event. And then the annual Water Congress Annual Convention is returning to the wonderful location of the Hyatt Hotel in Aurora with the amenities immediately across the street. If you need a hospital, there are several right there. So other than that, I can't think of anything positive about it. The location. So, and I have asked Doug Cooper if, based on the number of catalytic converters that were stolen over the last couple of years out of Water Congress attendees, if they will start reimbursing for.
Really?
Seriously?
Yeah, they're,
But at least the entire car wasn't.
right, it wasn't the
It
whole
wasn't
car.
the-
Right, Westminster, they steal the entire car. In Aurora, they only steal the catalytic.
Seriously. 30 from Water Congress?
Yeah, at Westminster.
How did I miss that?
You didn't
I didn't
have.
go, but valet parking. So
It was all the valets?
Oh.
somebody came in and snatched all the keys from the valet parking, little.
Oh, my God.
I try never do that.
Don't drive to Water Congress.
Not only that, cars from the metro area that had their
Garage door.
addresses, garage doors got.
All right,
Go to Denver again.
but then our first meeting's in January next year. And we'll just say shortly after that January quarterly meeting, we'll begin our bi-monthly legislative calls every Thursday at noon if we're at the board that we participate. I don't have anything else?
Okay. Well, we are 12 minutes ahead of schedule, so we'll take a break after 20 minutes. Greg Felt and Jackie Brown are expected as well. So.
In person?
Director Brown
Yes.
notified me this morning that she is not gonna be here.
Oh, Jackie's not coming. Okay, thanks. The Colorado Water Conservation Board and Greg Felt, a fellow county commissioner from Chaffey County and the president of the CWCB board. We also, I understand, have Jackie Brown online. So Jackie, welcome, and I hope your child is feeling better. Thank you so much for being with us today. We're really excited to have a conversation. I understand from Greg and Lauren that you all don't have a prepared agenda, and we do not either. So we're just looking forward to having a conversation. Maybe Andy, I'll let you say any welcoming remarks and then I'll turn it over to
I
you.
want to just thank you both for making the trip over. Definitely a long haul and morning on a middle of the week. I wanted to take the opportunity for our board to get to know Director Riss and really hopefully kick off a good relationship and see where, really want to focus on where we can work better together and how our two agencies can maximize the benefit for water users in Western Colorado. Understand that your mission is bigger and you have water users throughout the state, but we want to find great ways to work together. And so a lot of conversation would be really helpful. And thank you for coming.
Yeah, we really appreciate the invitation, and it was a smooth, beautiful drive this morning. No road work, no snow. It's quite lovely. So happy to make the trip. And yeah, I think as you said, we really don't have a prepared agenda, but I certainly thought it would be valuable to just do a little round of intros, if that seems to make sense. I can tell you a little bit about me and kind of where I'm coming from and my priorities and perspective for where the agency needs to go over the next few years. And I'd love to just hear a bit about you all. It's nice to kind of put faces to names. Some of you I know, and others of you I know your names, but I don't know a whole lot about you. So if that's okay,
That sounds great.
that's how I propose to open it.
Yep.
Yeah. So I guess to start, I was just appointed as the new director at the end of August, right? At Water Congress is when that was official. And prior to that, I was the deputy director at CWCB for the prior 6 years under Becky Mitchell. And as you may know, kind of the reason for the bifurcation of the positions was the governor's budget last year proposed creating a new full-time river commissioner position that would be housed within the Department of Natural Resources, just recognizing kind of the importance of Colorado River negotiations and the attention that really demands going forward. And alongside that new full-time commissioner position, also created about 14 new positions that would exist both in CWCB and in the Division of Water Resources to make sure that we have the staff available to measure and track and model what's going on the Colorado River, and also thereby open up some of those positions that were fully dedicated to doing that, to maintaining our compliance with other compacts and making sure that we have sufficient staff in other river basins. So just really freed up capacity. And then in CWCB's side of things, we were given a federal policy position that would really be in charge of helping out our interstate and federal team and making sure we're tracking what's going on both on the funding side of things and federal movements that are happening on the Colorado River to help support Amy Ostick. Many of you, I think, know Amy. Also, we were given a new modeling position to help support our efforts in the negotiations on the Colorado River, a communications position, and then a program assistant, because we really only have one admin in all of CWCB for 50 people. So it's really important to have somebody tracking the logistics and helping just manage the ingoing and outgoing. So we have not yet hired those positions with the exception of the modeler. We moved Brian McPherson up, who has already been in CWCB. So he's kind of moved on to that position. And then we're working on posting those new positions here in the next few weeks. So we'll hopefully be fully staffed up soon. Becky has officially transitioned over and is now the Colorado River Commissioner. So she reports directly to Dan Gibbs and to the governor. Which really is not a change as it relates to the river commissioner position. That position is always appointed by the governor and always had a direct line to the river commissioner. So I think really what changed is that Becky, was relieved of all of the responsibilities of being CWCB director, moved out of CWCB and kind of up and into DNR, where she's able to fully spend her time focusing on Colorado River issues. So about me, I grew up in Colorado. I was born and raised in Littleton, Colorado, left for a while, spent some time in the Pacific Northwest, worked on salmon issues, which there are a lot of similarities, except that they have more water than we do in the Pacific Northwest. Spent some time in Washington, D.C., went to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, go blue, so that doesn't offend anybody. And then came back here and worked a little bit at the CU Law School, doing some research on water law in the state of Colorado, and then met Ms. Curry, where I staffed the Ag Committee under Kathleen. I don't know, seems like a long time ago, but time goes fast. So I worked for the General Assembly and then moved on and was the legislative liaison, AKA lobbyist for DNR for a few years, and then moved into Kelly Romero Heaney's role, where I was the assistant director for water, and then on to CWCB. So I've kind of been in the Colorado water sphere for a decade or so. And I'm just really excited to be in the position now. You all probably work with some of the staff at CWCB and know just what a wonderful, talented group of people they are. We have an amazing board with representatives from each major river basin around the state. So we really have a statewide perspective. And I just feel really lucky with the group that we have right now on the board. They're really passionate and engaged and I think really motivated to do the right thing for the state of Colorado. So my priorities really over the next couple of years, you all know we just came out with the water plan and that was officially adopted this last January. We have 50 state actions that we've signed on to committing to implement, and that's really my priority. That's not just words on paper. We said we were going to do it. That's based on the input and the feedback that we got from all of our stakeholders around Colorado, including the Basin Roundtables and the IBCC. And we need to make good on our word. And then coupled with that, I think we really need to tell the story about what we're doing and what we're learning by implementing those actions. So that's my number one priority. I'd also really like to see us move forward on some of the intrastate tools we have for drought resiliency. That's one of the highlights in the water plan is that, we really position ourselves to be resilient given what we know we're facing with the arid climate and we had a great water year this last year, but we all know the models show that that's not likely to continue into the future. So we really need to make sure that we're well positioned to have our house in order. So I think that comes down to doubling down on municipal conservation, seeing what we can do to help ag in the state to make sure that, we're being efficient and still continuing to have a viable ag economy. And working with water users around the state to do what's in their best interest to move forward in a position of resiliency. So I know Greg probably want to talk about by way of intro. Turn it over to you.
Sure. Thanks.
Yeah.
And thanks to all of you. I serve on a couple of Water Conservancy district boards, and I have a great appreciation for boards and the way that they're put together. The fact that as individuals, we each bring our own sort of lens and our own experience to the table, but hopefully when a board is well composed, it's a truly powerful entity with just a great keel, you could say, that it keeps it from drifting too far off, and everyone's sort of combined efforts moves the ball forward. And so thank you all for doing that work as I sort of branched out of the Arkansas Basin a little more in recent years. It's just really impressed me, the caliber of people that work in water, and particularly the people that volunteer and that, or show up month after month and year after year to help plot our water future and remind us of how we got here. And the staying power is amazing. I'm serve on the Upper Arkansas Water Conservancy District Board. I think I've been there 17 years. When I came on, I was the youngest person on the board, and I'm the second youngest. 17 years later. So just as a little illustration, I guess, of the kind of longevity and commitment that you see. I also serve on the Southeastern Colorado Water Conservancy District Board. Maybe, I don't know, 6 years or something like that. They're good examples of how the different challenges that each of these conservancy and conservation districts face. By my training, I guess you could say, I always said I was a boatman who went to college in the off season. And that kind of sadly remains probably my prioritization. I've been a river guide, mainly fly fishing, but also whitewater for almost 40 years now. And that really helped me, or forced me maybe to think about, where does this river come from and how reliable is it, that sort of thing. And because we have this fantastic voluntary flow management program on the Arkansas River, that really drew me in, as I saw, just in a similar way that I know all you have, as I saw Aurora preparing to purchase and change one of our major agricultural water rights and take it out of the basin. It became clear to me that people like me from my sort of background or my sphere need to be a part of that conversation too. Couldn't just leave it to sort of the municipal providers to ensure not just that things were handled correctly, but that things like a voluntary, a tenuous flow management program was protected. So I started, I got to work with a great water attorney named David Harrison out of Boulder for several years, and just learned so much from him and got so enmeshed in the workings of all this that led me to join the Upper Ark Board and Southeastern and the Roundtable. And then in 2020, it's actually March 11th of 2020, I joined the CWCB board. Dan Gibbs, in his director report, spent the whole 45 minutes talking about some virus, and things went crazy from there. In 2016, I was elected county commissioner in Chaffee County. And by 2020, I was chairman of the Board of Health, which was normally about a half an hour a month, kind of your little update. And that March 11th was kind of the day that I was like, wow, maybe water isn't going to be my focus for a while, even as I'm sitting in CWCB for the first time. Anyway, we've all weathered that storm in our own way. But it gave me, I guess, even more appreciation for the importance of communication, clarity, transparency, and that as I look at, serving on this CWCB board, and especially now serving as the chair, just how important that is, that water conversations, to the extent we have them, or water assertions, maybe in the absence of conversation, are so often colored by concern, fear, suspicion. We know just broadly it's a very precious resource. It's often in short supply. I live on I would call it over-appropriated river. And what I have seen in my years on the Arkansas is just, and Andy's heard me say this alongside the Yampa River earlier this year, but you can't wait till you're in a crisis to try to make friends. And we all know that, given what's at stake, given the tensions in the water world, even if you don't have exactly a friendship, sometimes relationships, the ability to be a known commodity and for somebody else to be known to you and to be able to pick up the phone and have somebody else answer on the other end is really important. And so as I look at the CWCB and my role right now, it's really not so much about driving a specific element of the water plan or working on a specific challenge like some of the ones that are before you, as much as it is trying to make sure that those communication lines stay open, that we are as transparent as we can be. We all know there's times for executive sessions and things, but to be as open and transparent and I guess predictable as possible. And so that's why I'm here today. And I think that's why Lauren's here too. And just appreciate the opportunity and appreciate all of you.
I think you might let folks know about your background also in wildfire and forest health. That comes up a lot in our conversations.
If you want me to keep talking, I will.
2 more sentences.
One of the things that we've done in Chaffey County, we did it, I'm really glad we did it right out of the gate when I got elected, because it probably wouldn't have worked out if we hesitated, was to convene a countywide sort of visioning process, county community engagement process called Envision Chaffey County. And that was, it took us about 6 months to plan it, not the outcomes, but just the process, and to get to a point where we could feel comfortable with whatever outcomes came from it. In a county of 20,000 people, we had 1,500 people participate over the course of a school year. We spent the first semester composing by committee, very painful editorial process of identifying some 4 community visions. And then we spent the rest of the school year working on an action plan for either making sure the visions came true or keeping them true. And as we worked through that, we identified some landscape scale challenges that our community faced. Those were forest health and wildfire mitigation, impacts of outdoor recreation on the environment, and supporting agriculture and as an economic and cultural enterprise, and also the working lands and water that enterprise relies on. As we looked at those landscape scale challenges, it was clear that it takes a lot of money to address those, and we managed to pass a 4% sales tax that fall that is paid. You can imagine, many of you come from sort of resort-oriented communities or tourism-driven communities. About 40% of the bill is paid by visitors. And we created 3 funding buckets for those 3 landscape scale challenges and have been working on that. To the forest health point, identify the community wildfire protection plan as a really great statutory construct that would allow us to work together to convene a group and build out an approach to wildfire mitigation, and also to leverage the federal agencies to participate, because part of that statutory construct is, and part of agreements across the US, frankly, between that were helped to be engineered by NACO, National Association of Counties. When a community engages in a wildfire protection plan, the Forest Service and the BLM are supposed to participate. And as we looked at wildfire planning, what we saw was a real lack of coordination among agencies, what Dan Gibbs would call random acts of restoration, and not really a way of prioritizing where you could do the best work. So we worked with the Colorado Forest Restoration Institute up at CSU to build about a 50+ layer GIS map of our county, listing assets at risk and also factors that contributed to risk, and built out what we call the bang for the buck map, or the treatment priority map. And all 40 or so entities that participated in that process of building that institutionalized themselves into a Forest Health Council, and we all committed to working with this treatment priority map. The CFRI helped us realize that if we treated the right 5% of our landscape, we could reduce the risk of catastrophic wildfire by about 50%. We figured that would cost us about $40 million and take about 10 years. That's if everything went right. I almost walked away from it honestly, because it just seemed so overwhelming for us, a county of our size. But we really got cracking and we found that having that local commitment through our conservation finance measure, basically, that we were able to be very successful at getting funding. So of the $40 million, so this was in 2020 that we, or no, 2020, I guess, maybe first of 2021 that we brought the plan forward for ratification. We've raised about 27 million of the 40. We've treated about 4,000 of the 30,000 acres, but that's quickly, we're treating a couple thousand right now, actually, with a controlled burn. And we have, more importantly, we have about 16,000 of those acres in the NEPA pipeline, which always, adds some time to any project. And so, yeah, things are going really well with that. I appreciate you asking. We are proud of it, but more than pride, I mean, we're just so excited. We've also been working with private landowners. Our county's 80% public land, but there's quite a bit of high priority private land, maybe a third of those 30,000 acres. And we built out some really great programs that have long waiting lists where we work with neighborhoods and subdivisions to assist private landowners in getting their land cleaned up and more defensible. And then we're also going through a land use code update right now where we are incorporating a lot of the stuff that you would associate with the WUI type protocols that the state's been working on, where we've got those in place for the county too, both for land use planning and for the building permits and that sort of thing, building code. So I feel like I've talked way more than I planned. Appreciate the question.
We'll do shorter introductions, but thank you. Thank you. Alvin, you want to start?
Sure. Well, I'm Alden Vandenbrink from Rio Blanco County. I live and reside in Rapids, Colorado. The land that time forgot, it seems like we live in there, but it is dinosaur land. The White River is the river that I take a specific interest in. I'm a 31-year, 3-week and 20-day about water professional this year, where that's public utilities with an emphasis on water development, operation, and a manager. And presently I do run Rio Blanco Water Conservancy District, which does include a main stem dam and 2 megawatt hydroelectric power for the generator for the community as well. I like to believe I've applied myself with logic, absent political bias. And I continue to try to strive for that. So my county brought me into this because they've got some water issues and they felt the River District was the proper avenue for that, but also the Basin Roundtable where I've represented Meeker and Rangeley as the Rio Blanco County Municipal Representative now for about 12 years. And I've been an officer on the roundtable for 8, and I believe for 8 and now the present chair for the past 4. I'll be stepping down in November of this year from that position. So water is my world. It's what I do. It makes me tick. I've been doing this since actually as a little kid when my mom told me stories about what I did in my sandbox and making moats out of Wonder Bread wrapper thing where I'd line my pond, but it's been there. It's just who I am. So welcome, and I do look forward to working with you both. So
Thank you for that.
you bet.
See, Alvin, we all learned something there.
Explains a whole lot.
All right,
A
Director.
Wonder Bread wrapper was never safe in my mom's house.
Lauren Scott McKenna, great. We've met before, obviously had some great conversations. Lauren, we're excited about you coming on board. You've got a lot of the background, very healthy.
I don't know if it's healthy, but it is what it is.
So it's healthy for us. But anyway, so we're excited about it. Thanks very much for coming over. My name's Scott. And actually, it's my home. I was born in, believe it or not, in the bank.
You were born in the bank?
That was Park Bank, Park Delivery Room over there. Across the river. But anyway, so I represent Mesa County. And Mesa County is has some of the most senior water rights, some of the valuable water rights. And when you look at an equation of the haves and the have-nots, we're on the have side. So we have a natural suspicion that comes by legitimately for the have-nots who show up in our area and want to talk us into, and Aurora is an example amongst many others, surrendering what we have. So we feel that the River District's kind of our guardian angel. I've obviously got a lot of background, well, maybe not so obvious, but 30 years in elected office. When I first got elected, I was pretty young. And in my second term was chairman of the Natural Resources Committee, which had a lot more, was a lot broader in its authority than it is today. So water was at the very forefront of that. And Marty can remember people she used to work with, Glenn Saunders, people like that. A lot of history that's happened here. And when you look at our district, or if you look at the congressional district that I represented, it was larger, I used to win cups of coffee over this, geographically than the state of Florida. It's not like that today, but it was when I was there. Basically went from Wyoming to New Mexico down I-25, minus the cities. We picked up an evergreen. And I think we had, obviously we had everybody in here in that district. But that district was also on a have and have nots. That's where 80% of the water comes from. And 80% of the population or 90% of the population is on the other side. So that reinforced my inherent suspicion of the people on the other side that are constantly visiting us and send us flowers and pat us on the back and then fill their glass of water on their way out. So it tends to make you a little caustic after a while because you get tired of this. But it's reality. So I feel privileged to be here. This is our guardian angel. And really appreciate the time you've taken to come over and visit with us. Thank you.
Director Rober.
I'm Mark Grover from Delta County, represent Delta County. Greg and I crossed paths several times before, but first time I've met you. Likewise, I appreciate you guys coming over and getting to know us face to face. Delta County, you know, we went through transition. It was a mining community, agriculture. Now it's pretty much agriculture. We still have one mine going. But I'm an ex-county commissioner, served 2 terms there. But for Delta County, much like Director McGinnis stated, you know, we look at our water as our lifeblood, and to have some lots in line with the people we got. The district is very important to us, and CWCD is important to us also. The funding that goes into making us more efficient, and CWCD has played a role in that. We appreciate you and getting to know us and getting around when we come to you. So thanks.
Thank you.
So I'm Tom Gray. Welcome. I'm the representative on the River District from Moffat County. Been actually 16 years. My background is in agriculture. I was born and raised in eastern Colorado, actually out by Lyman. So, but I've been in Moffat County for 50 years. Been on the round table since the beginning. IBCC until I just stepped that recently. And I think having that much time in the water conversations that, and also an ex-county commissioner, that this is a, and I'm going to borrow a phrase from Bruce over dinner last night, this is a watershed moment, pun intended, in time as I see it from the last 20 or so years in the water world. And so glad to meet you guys. I think my concern and the reason I want to continue doing this work is that as in this watershed amendment, that we don't create winners and losers. And I think in Western Slope, we see all this change as threat more than opportunity. And so acknowledging though that along with change, there has to be change. That's the only thing that's constant. So just concerned that we don't become the short end of the stick over time. So I'm anxious to, I'm glad, Lauren, that you talked about your focus here in the immediate future on the water plan, implementing some things. So I'm anxious to hear more as we go along. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Hi, Marty Whitmore. I represent Uray County. I've been practicing water law since 1978. Have worked in 6 out of 7 divisions, managed to avoid 3. Did quite a bit of work in 2 a number of years ago, and 1 moved to Uray 11 years ago, not quite 12. Loved this side of the mountain, and I think because of my experience, I see the need for a lot of good water planning and foresight, vision in how we look at the state's water and especially the Colorado River and its tributaries. And so I'm anxious to participate in that. I think there's a lot of very interesting things and discussions going on right now that we need to have. And I also serve as the Montrose County Attorney. So perspectives there. But look forward to continuing to work with you. I would say if I have a priority, it's simply that you can't conserve that which you don't have. You can't conserve your way out of a drought. Storage is really important. So I was so pleased when the Colorado Water Plan acknowledged and emphasized the need for storage. And so look forward to continued discussions with you. Here.
Well, I'm Peter Fleming, I'm general counsel. Great. Thank you very much for coming. This is, from my perspective, at least a great way to continue to build on River District CWCD relationships and moving forward. I think I speak for everybody on the board to say, I'm not on the board, but as staff, that we're all committed to doing that. So thank you very much for making it true.
I will echo that. I'm Kathy Chandler Henry. I'm a county commissioner in Eagle County since 2013 and been on the board here some point after that. I don't know, 2016 or 17, something like that. As you know, because you just drove through it, Eagle County is a headwaters county, and we are a source of drinking water for the Front Range. At the same time, we are looking at having to limit growth because of limited water supplies in our county. So there's a sort of innate tension there between all the users of Colorado and how to share that scarce resource. We are an ag, we still have some ag in Eagle County that we are doing our best to support. And we are, of course, an outdoor recreation economy. So both of those things are totally dependent on water. The other thing that we're seeing a lot of is climate refugees, both from the Front Range on hot summer days. They come to the high mountain resort counties, and from states that are inhospitable places to live, like Texas. And we see a lot of folks coming and buying property and moving to Eagle County because of the heat. So that is something I think will continue to affect us. I'll echo what everybody said here about excited to work on this relationship that you both pointed out and see how we can best be a partner. Part of our mission at the district says that we are charged with safeguarding for Colorado all waters of the Colorado River to which the state is entitled. So we really kind of look at that mission and our role and are eager to work with you all, both on intrastate and interstate issues, and figure out how the conservation districts can support the work and advance it through the state.
Well, Lauren and Greg, I think you know me, Andy Mueller, the general manager here at the River District, and as I said in the beginning, I really look at our organizations as formed the same year by the legislature and to work together. There was also a recognition of times, I think even in our original legislation, we wouldn't always agree and speak with one voice, but that I think it's our job to find a way to work together on really great projects. I will say together, since we were able to pass our tax increase, I think the same year that Chaffey County passed its sales tax increase, the district successfully passed 7A, and because of that, we have been able to provide funding to over 100 projects since then throughout our district, and leverage quite a bit of money. And some of the money that we say we leverage is actually the state's money and the CWCD. And I think that the number of projects we're funding throughout our district is really important to keep in mind. To recognize that I think our staffs work very well together already, but we can always enhance that and make sure that we're coordinated in the way we do things. And I think, a number of the, I think maybe one of the best examples of programmatic symbiosis is the what we called our accelerator grant program, and I forget your name of your program, but they were both launched with the intent to really provide the ability for our local water users in our state to be eligible, position themselves to be eligible for federal funding through these massive funding programs that are out there. And I think that's really important. And I found that our staffs worked really well during that time. And Lauren, you were key to that. So I just want to thank you. And I look forward to more of that kind of coordination with. So.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you. Welcome. I really appreciate that you made the trip to come out, and I know both of you guys. I'm Kathleen Curry, and I represent Gunnison County on the board, and have been, I think, in the water business, Alden or Director Vandenbrink, I think I'm at 27 years. So, and wore a lot of different hats, got to know Lauren at the Capitol, and right now I lobby on behalf of some Western Slope water interests, but I prefer to call myself an advocate. That seems to meet with better response from folks. But I work on behalf of municipal and agricultural interests and the ag sector and wildlife folks. So I've been working there, and then I had served in the General Assembly kind of before I got to know you at all, Greg, but served in the General Assembly from 2004 to 2010, and sat on the Ag Committee, chaired the Ag Committee, but I got to know Senator Isgar really well. We worked together on a whole lot of legislation and miss him. So I got to chuckle out of the climate refugee term, because that explains why they're all in Gunnison. Right. Yeah, so, and we're probably the only county that is really okay with climate change. Extend your growing season. Quite the situation in the winter there, but so I look forward to our working relationship in the future, and I really appreciate that we have the good conversations that we do, and I know those will continue.
Dr. Haas.
Thank you.
Welcome, I'm Taylor Hawes. I am the representative from Summit County, and I could have just said ditto to everything Kathy said. We deal with the Trans Basin diversions. We're dealing with Dillon Reservoir is a drinking water for Denver, but a huge source of tourism and recreation in the county. So we're kind of, I feel like sometimes on that front line of we're the gateway in some ways to the western slope from the Front Range. So we get a lot of just that spillover of them issues on the Front Range and then kind of also being part of the western slope. It's an interesting spot to be with interesting history and mining and agriculture that's sort of transitioning to tourism and everything else and dealing with massive amounts of growth right now because of the climate refugee experience. I can't tell you, both Kathy and I were joking about when we meet people on the trails these days and they're like, oh, we're from Texas and we want to buy a house here. It's like, no, please come visit, but don't buy precious houses. It's just an interesting time right now to be in some of these counties that are provide a lot of amenities, but also are struggling with our own ways of providing water for growth. Just on my background, I'm a recovering water attorney, I would say now at this point. I've also been working in water for 27 years in lots of different roles, worked for the River District, worked for Peter.
Yeah. What's that about? Was it that bad?
She's recovering.
What you do is way harder. I'd rather do the policy work and the other things. So, no, I think I mean that in a bad way. But I also work for Northwest Colorado Council of Governments. So I've had the working for counties and also down at the Capitol. So lots of different hats. And I guess my focus, and my day job now is I work for the Nature Conservancy. I've run the Colorado River program. So I work in the whole basin. But I would just say my focus on this board and kind of how I think about all these issues is how do we find those win-win-wins? How do we not create winners and losers, to your point? I just feel like we cannot risk our state's population and all these different diverse interests. It's really a balance to find solutions, but I think we've got to. So I appreciate you all and the work you do and look forward to the conversation.
Well, welcome. I'm Doug Munger. I'm a fourth generation Rock County native. Our family homesteaded in 1902 at the confluence of the Elk and the Yampa. So I'm an accountant by trade, but I'm also a rancher. My family and I run 200 head mother cow-calf operation. I was 20-year recovering commissioner as well. Both Mark and I have served as the chair of CCI at different times. And it was very interesting. And you're very right about being leaders. I don't know, it's not a protectionist kind of concept, but if you want to get things done and make sure it's, and do no harm, the concept, and try to make sure that things move forward in the right manner. That's what you need to be. You need to be out there beating the bushes. So I appreciate your expression on the wildland fires. We're getting ready to start doing some of that too. So I've been on the round table since its inception. I've been on the Upper Yampa Water Conservancy District since 1994. I've served 3 terms as the chair of that. And we're lucky and we have money too. So we actually have a mill levy and we've done good things. We have run Stagecoach Reservoir and Yancola Reservoir, and we have good staff and good things happen. I want to commend you guys, the board. I had harassed Director Boucher and Director Brown at one point in time, making sure that when Lauren got hired, that you guys were actively involved. And I think that really happened. And I think that's an incredible thing. I was very fearful that would not happen. So I appreciate you guys getting your fingerprints in on that and being part of that process. I think we all need to figure out, even ranching or recreation environment, we all need to figure out how to work together and how we can move things together and try to, and again, I've been following the drought task force and the rest and how we can keep in with the prior appropriation system and yet try to move forward on flexibility and rest. So, the climate change.
Yummy.
Hey, Betty, do you want to mute your
climate change, what's gonna happen is all the people in California are gonna come to Colorado, and they are, and they have been, and they will continue. And whether we have snow or not, this is gonna be the place, your only place you're gonna be able to cool down. So, yeah, we have some challenging times. I don't think we can agree on how the climate change has occurred. I mean, both Director Gray and I both have power plants in our backyards. For the Upper Yampa Conservancy districts, probably a quarter of our taxes, and scheduled to go out of business in 2028. You know, so we're very concerned about how that, and yet we're providing service, and so we have to new model that we have to reflect to. So we're figuring out how we're gonna do that, and then you add to that the new drought situation is very challenging. That we have, I have water rights in 1902, the number second on the Yampa. Second and fourth on the Yampa, my water rights are, so. Anyhow, we need to take care of them, make sure we're using them responsibly too, so. Thank you for you guys coming, and good luck to you, and we'd be very interested in being allies. You know, we don't need to be butting heads on what's coming out of the legislature as well, so hope you can vet to us, and we can vet to you, and we can come up with common solutions. Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Richard.
Hello, welcome. I'm Mike Richard. I represent Grant County, where the majority of our water goes east through the Trans Mountain Water. My history, I'm fourth generation like Doug in our area. We came in from Grant County in 1892, homesteaded there, our family did. I guess the majority of my experience with water is spent on leaning on a shovel and irrigating and stuff, so I have a very diverse background on that end of it. Been extremely involved within the community and everything. Our family has been heavily involved within the Grant County community in terms of representing water and trying to protect it and doing what we can there. Grant County is, especially in the upper end, Winter Park, Granby has experienced tremendous growth right now. A greater need for water and the use of water up there. East Charleston Fire certainly indicated to us that there's got to be definitely an understanding of water and how fires will work through trees and stuff like that, and the coordination there, involved with the Community Foundation Board up there that became heavily involved with receiving funds after that to help the people that were displaced by that. Tremendous work effort there. So I think when we look at healthy forests, we're going to look at healthy water and quality water coming off of there. Truly appreciate you guys coming here and opening up the line of communications between the boards and stuff. I am a neighbor with Paul Boucher, who's on your board, and I truly appreciate him being on your board because when he's gone, I can use his water. So
We try and keep him busy.
He's been zooming a lot, so
Yeah.
I think he's watching his water and participating.
He is. I'm gonna have to slow down on that.
Multitask.
Yeah.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
thank you.
If I could just say a quick response, and I meant to say this in my opening, I just really appreciate these face-to-face interactions and really want to extend the invite to you all. If you have other opportunities, meetings where you'd like us to come, I would love more than anything to fill up my calendar. I'm trying to get out to all the roundtables before the snow flies, but I'm not going to make all of them before that happens. But that really is my number one priority right now, is to kind of get out and, you know, talk to people in the community and hear what's on your mind. So open invitation for you to invite me wherever you're headed to community meetings or one-on-one conversations. I'm really happy to do that. And if I can't be there, I'll certainly send somebody if it's a date certain. So I really appreciate the sentiment that we're better united than divided. And I truly think that we have more in common than not, just different perspectives sometimes. So I'm more than happy to, you know, take any questions. You know, kind of, I'm personally curious to hear kind of where your priorities are going forward, especially as it relates to the funding. I mean, I totally agree, Andy. I think our federal technical assistance grant program and your accelerator grant program really worked hand in hand together, and we were able to get a lot of projects funded. And one of the things we're looking at going forward is how can we, that was a temporary program with temporary funding. We're looking at, how can we kind of extend the resources available to really enhance the capacity building. That's, I think, one of the real barriers to getting projects off the ground. So anyway, would love to hear your priorities and happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Okay, so we're at the question phase. Okay. And I forgot to mention, thank you, Madam President, that I sit on the round table and I have the Gunnison Basin Roundtable. I can't remember how many years, but it's on behalf of Saguache County. And I think I'm going on 7 or 8 years, I think. But I wanted, since you brought up the topic of funding, this question of funding for existing infrastructure has been of interest to a lot of folks. I mean, the task force talks about it. The Colorado River Drought Task Force has had some good discussions. The Gunnison Basin Roundtable provided a letter to the task force in support of adequate funding for existing infrastructure, both ag and municipal. And I think there's a lot of confusion about the funding sources. Which pot is getting how much money? Is one pot getting more than the other? And that relates to the Water Supply Reserve Fund and water plant grants. And I wondered if you could speak to your thoughts on that. One of the sensitive issues is that some of these infrastructure projects don't have, they don't easily fit into multiple benefit categories. And that, I think, is one of the reasons that there's confusion, because sometimes it's just lining a canal and it's not always got a whole host of other benefits and other beneficiaries. So would you be willing to tell us your thoughts on where that's headed in the future? We know the demand is huge.
Yeah.
We know that it's way in excess of available funds, but it's real.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that question. I might just provide some of the background and facts, and you can provide the color commentary if you want to. But no, we know this has been a topic of interest and has been coming up in a number of different forums, the task force and roundtables. And I do think that there's confusion, so I'm happy to kind of provide some clarity, what I can provide. You all might remember there was a bill that was run in 2001, Senate Bill 281, that basically changed the funding structure for how WSRF was funded. So I won't get too into the nerdy budget weeds, but it used to basically receive kind of some spillover funding from severance tax, what we refer to as Tier 2. And that whole funding model was changed so that now WSRF receives funding from our perpetual base fund, which is our primary fund that receives 25% of severance tax revenues, and that goes directly to our loan program. So our board was given the authority to fund at its discretion Water Supply Reserve Fund through that perpetual base fund. So again, that's severance tax funding really dedicated towards supporting our loan program. And shortly thereafter that bill passed, our board approved changing the WSRF guidelines to kind of a 3-year pilot to really try and stabilize the funding that WSRF was getting. Because it was so reliant on this spillover severance tax, the funding that the basins received and the statewide accounts received was just up and down every year. It was really hard to plan and predict what you were going to have available. So what our staff recommended and the board approved was every year taking $3 million out of the perpetual base fund and putting it towards the basin accounts. And so that equals about $300,000, or actually, yeah, $300,000 a year roughly to each of the basin accounts, and then providing an annual refresh up to that amount every year for the WSRF. And that is historically about $40,000 a year more than the basin accounts were getting. So we tried to provide some certainty, provide a little bit more funding than was historically received by WSRF, and then also set aside $300,000 a year for the PEPO program, so that we could really make sure that we were providing funding to statewide education efforts and to make sure that PEPO had some funding that was reliable. The other change that was made then with the statewide account is kind of shifting how we were thinking about the statewide account to have that operate as a kind of a reserve for the basin accounts, up to $9 million a year. So trying to provide 3 years worth of funding that the basin accounts could dip into with the statewide account. We recently went through kind of an internal audit of funding that was available. And that audit basically resulted in an additional $9 million of funding that now is going to be made available for statewide grants through the statewide account. So, you know, there was a pretty large infusion of funding that was $17 million total that went into the basin and the statewide accounts a couple of years ago. We expected that funding to last quite a bit, like a decade, just based on historical spending. And congrats to you all and all of the roundtables. We saw a just historic demand on that funding. And I think that's in part because of the federal funding that was in play, that you were really able to leverage that. Your funding at the River District with the tax initiative, I think really helped. You know, having match is just critical. So, you know, we saw, let me see, what are the numbers here? I wrote it down. So based on that 17 million, our board approved about 14 million WSRF grants, which totaled about 6.2 million from basin funds and about 8.3 million in statewide funds. So that's amazing. We love to see that. That means projects are getting done on the ground. So that's kind of the background of where we've come from and the spending that's occurred over the last couple of years. Going forward, to answer your question, Kathleen, kind of the difference between the Water Plan Grant Program and WSRF, so the Water Plan Grant Program is in statute. And then we have criteria and guidelines that our board has approved for kind of the details about how that funding is basically prioritized among the applications that we received. But I'll tell you, in statute, you know, the categories are, you know, in statute for what we can fund as are, you know, the eligible entities. So, you know, we're able to fund projects that are water storage and supply. So projects that facilitate the development of additional storage, dredging, and then projects that are identified in basin implementation plans that address the water supply demand gap. Second category is conservation and land use projects. So these are all around land use, drought planning, conservation. Engagement and innovation is the third category, water education, outreach, innovation efforts. Fourth category is agricultural projects, projects that provide technical assistance or improve ag water efficiency. Fifth category is environment and recreation, including projects for watershed health, environmental health, recreation. And then the other provision that's in statute is directs the board for how we are to evaluate eligible applications based on criteria that conforms with the framework for a more efficient permitting process, which is a framework that was developed by the IVCC that's incorporated into the water plan. Second criteria is alignment with applicable BIPs, so making sure that the projects are in the basin implementation plan. And then the third criteria that we're given to use is the impact of the project, with preference given to projects that have multiple benefits and multiple purposes and involve multiple stakeholders. So my read of all of this is that infrastructure projects are absolutely eligible for funding under the Water Plan Grant Program, but we're directed to prioritize the applications we receive and give, you know, the highest ranking to those projects that do provide multiple benefits. So, you know, that means, yes, you know, replacing diversion structures absolutely qualifies, but we're directed to prioritize projects that maybe also then improve fish habitat or provide boating passage or have some other kind of environmental recreational benefit. And we, you know, I would say as we developed this grant program and what's reflected in our criteria and guidelines that was approved by the board is really that the purpose of this grant program is to make progress on the goals and actions in the water plan. So infrastructure is, of course, essential to how we administer water and make the best use of water in Colorado. But I think the rub is we're kind of looking for projects that take it the extra mile. And that is kind of where we try and fit that into the water plan. WSRF projects, absolutely eligible for infrastructure related projects, as is our low interest loan program. That really has been the bread and butter for the projects that we look to fund through our loan program, which has really exceptionally low interest rates. And, we're gonna have to take a look at, what severance tax is doing, what the Proposition DD sports revenue funds. The projections for that are really astronomical. We're looking at like $28, $29 million coming in for the next couple of years. So part of the exercise that we went through with the board every year is looking at the funding available versus the demand that we've seen through the water plan grant program, and just trying to make sure that we're, prioritizing the highest and best projects, with typically more projects coming in than we have demand for. But now that revenues are increasing, we may be able to fund more of the applications that would typically not get funding. So that was a lot.
Just a.
I have a few thoughts maybe to share on that.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
That's all right.
Sorry.
I feel like.
Let me check in with you guys on time. Can you afford a little extra time for us? We had you down for an hour, but I think.
I'm here for as long as you guys want me.
Okay.
I'm supposed
Be
to.
careful saying it.
I'm supposed to dial into the Lower Arc Conservancy District meeting around 10:45. And I may need to borrow your Wi-Fi here to do that, but.
We can set you up with an office.
But yeah, I'm very flexible.
All right, thanks.
Just a few other thoughts on your question, Kathleen. I know this board concerns itself with permanence in many ways and expressions. And to my mind, when you look at the water world, we already talked about healthy forests, critical. Aging or new infrastructure, our man-made infrastructure doesn't work in the context of an unhealthy or burned forest. And then agriculture, because obviously we all rely on that. Any kid knows that, but we also recognize that so much of our water rights are in agriculture. And I think that, when we look at these applications for loans or grants from ditch companies, especially, it's so often, these are developed water rights. It's not like we're getting applications for supporting brand new infrastructure for a brand new ranching enterprise or something. These are all infrastructure that was built by your great grandparents to just connect with many of you on that. And I think that, to allow those infrastructure elements to fall into disrepair or to become less effective and less efficient, it imperils the whole water equation in Colorado. So while I'm sure my mind blurred over a little bit through some of what Lauren said, just like probably yours did, because it's so complicated. Bigger picture, zooming out, and I never want to speak for our board, for the individuals on our board, but I do feel there is that what I just said would be supported by our board members. And so I think it's important to consider that there may be other ways that we don't have right now, that loan programs, grant programs that we don't yet have that could be really helpful in this. One of the things that we've seen in Chaffee County through our surveys and polling that we did, and Department of Agriculture, Colorado Department of Agriculture has seen the exact same thing. We asked, people whether they supported agriculture or not in our survey. 97% said they did. Kate Greenberg's outfit asked a similar question. They got 98%. When I talk to people in agriculture, though, everyone says things like, I got a target on my back. Everyone's out to get me. I'm in my foxhole. You hear a lot of these war analogies and metaphors. And so it's like, wow, what is this disconnect? And I think part of it is everybody supports agriculture, but besides going to the supermarket, they're not sure how to express or demonstrate that support. And I think one of the ways that we could do that, and one of the, an opportunity maybe to build some unity throughout the state, frankly, around water, is giving people the opportunity to further support agriculture through supporting funding for aging infrastructure. It's not going to fix itself. And when you are in the bunker, so to speak, certainly part of the driver for that feeling is economic, partly social, isolation, there's all these things people talk about, but economics is a big part of it, those pressures that you feel all the time. And just from my experience as county commissioner, we're constantly looking for ways to help people demonstrate their support. And we've had some neat successes at that, but as a state, I think, currency, it was designed to help people work together and make deals across different types of occupations and enterprise and stuff. And so finding ways for our state population to further support agriculture, and I think aging infrastructure is a great example that people can get their mind around, is to me a really interesting challenge and something that I think our board would be, interested in being a part of.
Thanks, Greg. Got Andy, and then Director Gray, Director Haas, and Director Whitmore.
Well, I wanted to say, we're working closely with a couple of our large irrigation districts to try to figure out, how do they best participate in a systematic water conservation program should the state fund it's necessary. Implement something. And one of the things that really has clearly been identified by our water users and some of the outside experts who brought in to help, some of which work is funded jointly with the CWCB, so definitely appreciate that. It is the systems as they're designed don't work for individual participants in some of these projects to participate, and need more. This is probably a generalization, but more efficient infrastructure design, and they need help really being able to implement that and position themselves to be able to participate in a way that doesn't cause injury to their neighbors. And so how do we help our water users do that? Because they hear the call that, hey, things are changing. They understand water supply is tightening. They want to participate in a way that doesn't injure themselves and injure their neighbors or their communities. And there's a huge demand monetarily for that kind of work. And it's interesting because it's hard to demonstrate the multi-benefits for that kind of project, but yet there are, because if and when our state needs to implement those programs, then there's a huge benefit to all of us, right? And that's I would love to work more, Lauren, with you and with the CWCB board to figure out how we can position those kind of projects to really be implemented. And
maybe there's some sort of kind of a mutual education effort that we can work on between the two of us, and go out and see some of the projects that you're talking about with we do have new regional grant managers that are now like out living and working with communities, which is super helpful for all of us, I think. But we're happy to learn and see and
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Oh, so thank you. So I just wanted to follow up. Greg, I appreciate your comments on just now, and I wanted to follow up on Director Curry's comment. In our roundtable, in our basin, we have, in parallel with the water plan, tried to, with grants in our grants committee, we try to look for multiple benefit projects first, and that normally goes to the main stem diversions and stuff, so on, where there's actually some recreation and so much going on. But we're beginning to use those up as time passes. Is there a mechanism, or is there a possibility of kind of modifying that multiple benefit? Because as Director Curry said, we have many smaller, either individual ditches or ditch companies who need some infrastructure help. And it's really hard to make the case that this is multiple benefit, but yet as Andy was saying, the big picture, it will benefit, it will have multiple benefits. It's just hard when you're applying for a grant. So I'm trying to give you feedback from a local perspective that we get some, either we don't get the grant applications because the individuals say, well, we don't qualify. I can see that. And it's a little bit complicated to go for a WRS. Grant if you're an individual person anyway, or a very small ditch. So I'm just saying, is there a way as we progress and kind of start using up in each little basin, some of the multiple benefit, bigger projects that we could transition to these real needs? And Craig and I was talking before, there is real needs, but there's sort of a codlock there with being able to qualify. And then we've even, in our roundtable, offered up help for smaller entities to apply, but it's a little bit, it's just a little bit too complicated for the normal guy like Director Richard, who's got a shovel in his hand, and several of us who's, you just really don't get it. And so it's just asking, is there a way to, I know you have by statute the guidelines, but is there a way to start transitioning so we can begin to implement some of the other kind of projects?
Yeah, no, I totally get it. If you're just an individual out doing the work, navigating the grant process and trying to fill it out and make sure you are doing everything correct is a challenge. I mean, I think I'd be interested in hearing more about kind of what the hangups are and thinking through if there are maybe other programs that we have that might be better suited. I guess my initial response to that is, our staff really tries to be available to anybody who's interested, and we'll walk them through the process if that's the hang up. We rarely turn somebody down if they have a project and they're just looking for help and trying to navigate what's the best program to go through and even help them fill out the application. That's part of why we have these regional folks out there. So don't be shy about just calling people up at our agency. We're here to help and really want to be out in the community. So I guess that would be one thing I would say, but I would be interested in hearing a little bit more about the types of projects that people are trying to get through that they just feel like either don't qualify or are being denied funding. I mean, generally speaking, I would say we would probably direct people first towards WSRF and our loan program. And so if that process is too complicated and difficult to navigate, I'd be interested in learning more about how we can be more helpful.
So just right quick, I think Alden and Doug will agree. We have an excellent person that's heading up our grants house program within the roundtable, Steve Hickmeyer.
Yeah.
And he's available, and he would be better able to tell you some of the places where we could maybe make some changes.
Yeah.
Director Haas.
No, thanks. So I'm gonna take us up maybe to a higher level for a bit. So in the past 15 years or so, the director of CDBC has also been the lead negotiator on Colorado River issues. And so with this change in structure, how do you see, what's the role of the CWCB now in these bigger interstate conversations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as you may or may not be familiar, we have a number of different sections within our agency, and one of those sections is our interstate and federal section. And so that's where Amy Ostick lives, Emily Smack, if you've met Emily, Brian McPherson, and Michelle Garrison. So they work on all of the state's interstate compact issues, the recovery programs. Brian does quite a bit of our modeling on Colorado River issues. So they still are within CWCB. I'm still their quote unquote boss, directing their activities. Becky now is still using and relying on that team as she is staff in the Division of Water Resources. She doesn't have like formal supervisory experience, responsibilities over that section of the agency. They report to me, but my goal and Becky's goal is to continue to be aligned. We're all within the Department of Natural Resources. We're all reporting to the governor. I, of course, answer to the board that's represented by the directors from basins around the state of Colorado. Becky is going to continue to come before the board and to provide updates and get input from our board. She, as you might have heard, is newly appointed as the director of the IBCC, the Interbasin Compact Commission. And I think that will be helpful in just kind of solidifying her connection to the roundtables and the statewide advisory body. The IBCC isn't going to take on any new role or responsibility as it relates to negotiating on interstate issues, but I do think it provides a really nice, formal avenue for Becky to engage with stakeholders in that role. So we're going to continue to be engaged on, and helping to advise Becky and provide the technical and policy support that she needs to engage in the negotiations. We're not going to be driving the agenda or setting the priorities for what Becky walks into a room with the other upper basin or lower basin states in those negotiations, but we are definitely providing policy and technical support, and the board is continuing to provide feedback and advice in their capacity as a statewide advisory board to Becky. Does that help?
Probably
Time will
give
tell,
her
right?
more feedback than she usually use, but we definitely, that I think as a board and as individual members of the board, there's a really open line of communication. And just, we don't drive that, but we, very diversely experienced group of people, and they have good ideas. And I've seen on multiple occasions in recent months, Becky saying, I'm going to take that idea, or I'm going to quote you on that in a negotiation. So there's also her board of sworn in advisors, so to speak, that, are providing different perspectives and brainstorming and that sort of thing. So I think it's a pretty good cross-pollination going on. And I think we're all very excited that Becky is not being pulled in so many different directions now. She couldn't have done what she did the last several years without Lauren as deputy director, frankly. But I think it's great to allow her to just focus in on one big challenge area rather than everything.
I might just say too, I think sometimes recent history just gets lost because there's so much going on in this arena, but it was the case in just a few years ago that the river commissioner was an appointed position that lived entirely outside of the state system.
Right.
So in a lot of ways, this kind of institutionalizes that position to be part of the state and have a formalized role. But according to state statute, the governor could appoint anybody to be the river commissioner and did not have to have a formal tie to the CWCB board or the agency itself. And that was the case within just the last few years.
Here we've got Director Whitmore, Director Vandenbrink, and then Director Munger.
So to kind of follow up on that theme, as you know, I think this board has been really interested in and very active in trying to assist in the demand management and SCPP discussions, and have tried to be kind of proactive in that regard. And the 2018 statement in the CWCB adopted that kind of had broad consensus throughout the state was something that the district participated in as well. But the critical pieces, I think, for us are the fact that it really highlighted the need to protect the agricultural sector, and that the contributions be spread out statewide so that it's not disproportionately a target on the West Slope's back, and in particular West Slope Ag. How do you see that 2018 statement policy adopted? How do you see that moving forward in the ongoing discussions about both SCPP and
Welcome to lead. I wasn't part of the 2018.
Yeah, so,
discussion,
and
but-
yeah, I don't think anything has changed about our board's position on that. Our mantra all along, you all know that we had a statewide demand management investigation that involved numerous working groups made up of stakeholders from around the state that spent lots of time and money kind of looking at every angle of this problem and came out with recommendations that our board considered. Our mantra all along is that it needs to be voluntary, temporary, and compensated, that we need water rights owners at the table and part of the conversation, that equity is a really important principle as we consider whether or not to move forward with any kind of a demand management program. I think our board's position continues to be that honestly, that there are a lot of things going on, both at the federal level and at the state level right now. And I think it's still a question out there, whether it makes sense for the state at this time with what we have available to us right now and the information we have, given everything that's going on at the federal level, if it makes sense to pursue that. So, I certainly appreciate the work that your chairwoman is involved in on the task force, along with Jackie Brown and others around the state to kind of help supplement that conversation and perhaps provide a different perspective and some new considerations as we move forward. But, I think our board continues to be open to hearing additional perspectives and evaluating. Things are moving so fast, with what's going on with the renegotiations of the guidelines and the federal SEIS processes that are taking place right now. Just making sure that we're moving forward in a way that makes sense for the entire state of Colorado. And making sure that those who would participate in such a program want it and are able to use it. And so as far as SCPP goes, the Upper Colorado River Commission did vote, I'm sure you guys are all paying attention to this, did vote to move forward with another round. Our board's role in that, as it was previously, will be to consider whether or not water users will be protected as far as their HCU, and counting that as part of the state conservation program, which is the mechanism then that everyone is protected who wants to participate, continue to be a voluntary program. We're committed to making some changes based on the feedback that we heard after the most recent round, trying to be more transparent. We are planning on, making as much information as possible available to interested parties. That includes the water information. We'll still redact personal identifying information, but are going to try and go light on the black pen, and are planning on having a kind of a listserv that you can sign up for that will be available on our website, that you can see the applications that come in. We're trying to, we have to work kind of within the confines of the UCRC, but are also trying to roll the program out sooner than happened last go around. We're hoping that'll actually happen later this month. We're kind of waiting on the Bureau of Reclamation to solidify some things, but that's our intention. So, yeah, I don't know, Greg, if you have anything to add.
Well, I would say voluntary, temporary, compensated, and then I would add effective and necessary. And that's where my questions tend to arise, is in those last two.
Yep.
I want to mention SCPP, something I wanted to talk about today. Last March, when we met as a board in an aggravated, extended executive session, talk about just the simple question of, can this board approve SCPP as a conservation program and thereby participate water rights from abandonment or, having their historic consumptive use diluted. And at that time, I said, out of the executive session, I said, don't ask me to do this again. Because I really have an issue, I think, with it. Simply stated, this may not, you may not appreciate this, but paying people not to farm. Like, I just don't think that's a really healthy thing to do. I'm much more interested in paying people to farm. And in fact, that's something we do in Chaffey County. We actually pay out of that same fund. We pay people to keep, doing the ecological services they've been doing. I guess everyone has the prerogative to change their mind. this last meeting in September that we had in Salida, another layer was added to the SCP program, SCPP program, that really changed how I viewed it. Because, you know, we were just basically compensating people who wanted to participate, and then the water became system water, and the next junior water right that was in need could take it, you know, according to the prior appropriation system. Well, what we were presented with was an additional layer, which was to prioritize projects that either helped enhance drought resiliency or conservation. And it just really became clear to me that if you're an agricultural producer and you would voluntarily like to advance those causes, it is extremely difficult to do while you are actively producing. And so the idea that people could be compensated and allowed to reduce their productive acreage on a temporary basis to potentially implement either new processes, new crops, improving their water infrastructure, doing things that you need to do during the warmer months and you can't really do them while you're also irrigating and or, you know, working the exact lands that you may want to be you know, attempting on. That really resonated with me. All of a sudden I saw a value there that I hadn't seen before. I'm still not keen on the water just going into the system. I don't like that, but it forced me to bite back my tongue and say, you know, I can get behind this because I think it will really help agriculture. And I think there are people that would really, I know some people who I think would really want to take advantage of this. So it was interesting to me. It's about the 100th time I've reminded myself not to make declarations in public meetings. But anyway, I'm looking at it a little differently now, and I'm hoping that the you know, this is words from the commission, not from the CWCB, but I am hoping that this may lead us down a path that actually ties back to the aging infrastructure question broadly, and just permanence for agriculture, and acknowledging that, yeah, you can't always initiate new concepts. You know, you can't build the airplane while you're flying it, despite people using that analogy a lot when it comes to agriculture. And so I'm hopeful that maybe this is a new way of looking at innovation. And if there's federal money available to fund that, I'm now seeing much more clearly why that could be a good thing for us to get behind.
Greg and Lauren, is there a role for the conservation districts to help in that process of looking at applications and some of the things you just talked about CWCB is doing, the, you know, feeling like we're one level closer to the users on the ground and might be able to support that process and provide some
We'll leave that
input?
one to you.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can really speak to that one.
Yeah, I mean, so I believe that the UCRC is having some kind of a public webinar or conversation about SCPP on, I always don't know whether to say the second P.
Yeah, I know.
SCP, I don't know how many Ps there are, on October 27th. So maybe stay tuned for that. The CWCB's role in this really is fairly limited. This is being run by the UCRC. You know, we help to work with the UCRC staff and looking at the applications as they come forward. You know, but our role really as a board is to, you know, say whether or not this counts as a state conservation program and protects water users. We haven't had that conversation yet. That will likely happen in November at our board meeting. Because of the timing of when the UCRC approved this next round. So I think, you know, with our efforts to release the information that we receive in the applications, you know, your input is welcome, as is, you know, any any ones in the state of Colorado to us, and we can certainly filter that through to the UCRC as applications are being evaluated. But it's not gonna be, we're not the ones that are administering the program, right? So we don't have a direct finger on that lever, but we certainly have communication.
Thanks, Andy's got to follow up, and we'll hear from Director Vandenbrink, Director Munger, and then I think we're probably.
And I've got about maybe 5 to 7 minutes before I need to get on that, but Lauren can say, I do want to introduce her to Laura Board though, at some point this week.
I appreciate it. Try to be fast. I do think, Lauren, I understand it's a UCRC program, and Greg, I appreciate the additional layer that has been put in there, and appreciate Becky's role in getting that more specific goals with the SCPP. I will say, I think, our state and our district has had concerns, and we've voiced them, but I would love to work closely. I think transparency is part of it, but the transparency with a process to protect other water users from injury. And that's really, if you look back at your 2018 demand management policy statement, I know they are two different programs, but they potentially have the same effect inside of our state on water users. And that is, reducing the consumptive use and potential injury to others. It's the injury question. And then there's also the proportionality that if SCPP, I understand this is due to the federal funding agreement, just a 2-year program, but I would ask, and on behalf of our district, to please keep in mind that this is really the second P is pilot program, right?
I just don't know how many pilots we've done.
And if it's a pilot, it's potentially going to become another P, a permanent, right? And so we really, from our perspective, is that if this grows into something, proportionality, yet another P, is also important, and that comes into that no disproportionate harm to communities, and that's also in your 2018 policy statement. And it really, no matter what you call a water conservation program of this nature, water bank, at the Drought Task Force, we're talking about all sorts of different things. In essence, it's reducing consumptive use and moving that water somewhere else. In the instance of a federal government funded program through the UCRC, the feds are funding it not to help us within our state. They're funding it to get the water into the interstate system. And I know that's not the state's goal necessarily, but that is the federal goal. Okay. And so we'd love to work with you to continue to improve both the protections on injury and how we address proportionality should this develop into something more long-term. And that just want to flag that for you. We think those are really important to our water users. This board has voiced great concern about it. So just would love to have the opportunity to work.
Yeah, appreciate that concern. I think it's something that we share, and let's continue to talk about it as this goes forward.
Director Vandenbrink.
Thanks for the open dialogue. Thank you very much. This has been very helpful. I get a sense as the chair for the Basin Roundtable. I talk to a lot of the chairs going around the state and several Basin Roundtable members. But I get a sense from the Basin Roundtables and the IBCC that there's a sense of disengagement from our statutory responsibilities with House Bill 1177. How do you see the importance and roles of the Basin Roundtable and the IBCC as we progress as a state?
I mean, personally, I see, I like to think of the roundtables and the IBCC, but primarily the roundtables as kind of being the social infrastructure for how we do water. We talk a lot about actual infrastructure, but I think the Basin roundtables are actually absolutely critical to how we have these conversations and make the tough decisions and policy calls around the state. I mean, I think the brilliance of Russ George and the other sort of founding fathers of this process was tying it to funding through the WSRF, because I think we all know that, the stick, works sometimes, but the funding and the carrot is what really brings people to the table. So I think continuing to have reliable funding available to Basin roundtables is really important. And I think, the IBCC, in as much as it acts as the forum for conversations among and between the roundtables, is a really important part of our state process and informing all of us. I mean, I think there's so tremendous value, not so much in the, meeting agendas of the IBCC, but just bringing people together from the various roundtables to have lunch together and to, put faces to names and have the conversations and share contact information. So we all know who to call when there's an issue in our basin that we need to reach out and have those cross basin conversations. To me, that's the real value in the IBCC. I do think that, over the past few years, the IBCC has sort of had this existential crisis about the role and the value that they play in the state of Colorado. And I think, part of that is because the mission is, a little bit open-ended. And I think there's some value in that. I think if we try and prescribe and create, too firm a boundary around what the IBCC can and can't do, we may be, limiting the role and value of that entity in a way that ultimately is not super constructive. So I think, one of the benefits of having Becky now as the IBCC director, taking over from Dan Gibbs, is that, she knows the roundtable. That's kind of how she came up in the CWCB, was through the water supply planning section in our agency. She knows how the roundtables work and understands kind of the history and the value that the roundtables and the IBCC bring to the statewide conversation. And I think she'll be a really effective and passionate facilitator of hard conversations. Because I mean, again, that to me is really the value, is we can provide the forum for these tough conversations to take place. But a lot of times we look to the IBCC to tell us what's important to address and how to set the agenda moving forward. And sometimes that ends up in a lot of swirling conversations that don't really seem to lead anywhere. But I also think it's respectful to the original intent of the IBCC that is our grassroots structure through the roundtables and the IBCC to hear the input of the basins around the state of Colorado, and that we're not just like talking to ourselves at the agency and board level. So that was a long-winded answer, but I think they're absolutely crucial to the process in Colorado.
I'm quite hopeful about this upcoming C9 summit, because I feel like we have maybe kind of hit a watershed moment, to use that term that was used earlier. I feel like we're sort of getting a lot of things squared away with our Upper Colorado River Commissioner role, with new leadership in the IBCC, with a great board. Truly, it is a great board at CWCB. And I think an acknowledgement that everybody would share about the importance of the roundtables. And this is, I think this is an opportunity to try to pull that all together, to get everybody hopefully thinking about the interrelationships and the structure that 1177 created. Get everyone sort of on the same page and hopefully pulling in the same direction, because all those different layers, different elements of the structure are really have been critical to its success. And I wasn't as involved in water before 1177 as I am now, clearly, but it's very clear to me what a tremendous improvement that was, statewide and basin by basin. And so I am really hoping for strong participation in November. I think that's really an opportunity to maybe do a little bit of a restart, especially with IBCC. And as you said, sort of the existential eddy they've been in for a while. Hopefully, we can really start to sort out how the different pieces can best fit together and support one another.
Yeah, that's a good plug. The C9 Summit is November 14th in Westminster. There's information about it on our website, and everybody's welcome. And hopefully that will be a good opportunity for a kind of a realignment.
I better go get set up. You keep going.
Okay.
Whatever you want to do.
We've got one more question for you, and then we'll give Andy and.
Yeah, I'll be real
Laura
quick
the
here.
wrap-up.
No, I just wanted to, Greg, if you're on your way, Lindsay can help you with
Okay.
a room upstairs and get you on the Wi-Fi.
I'm sorry, I thought I had plenty of time. Obviously I don't, but
Thank
it's
you.
a-
Thank you.
it's a commitment. So thank you all.
Come back.
I will be glad to.
All
So-
right, Director Munger.
Yeah, real quickly, I'll try to tack on a couple. Zane told us yesterday that the assembly is looking to rate the severance tax again, how important it is to you guys. And definitely how important it is to the local governments, the energy impacted thing. So I don't know if you have any say in that. You know, when I first became a commissioner, first thing they did was rate the severance tax and our energy impact grant funds and the rest and DOLA and the rest. So I don't know if you have any pull on that with Director Gibbs and the rest in the budget making. I would hope that we not have that, because when it is poor, there's never any replenishment of it either. Grants, we still, number one priority is to fix what we have. That should always be our number one priority. It's our, and yet I know I filled out one of the grants and the rest, the ranchers are not gonna fill out those things. So your regional reps are very important. And I was a little distressed that the regional rep for our Northwestern was out of Durango or something. So I'm not sure how regional that is, but I mean, that's a big region.
Yeah.
For rural area anyhow.
Same area code, I don't know why.
Same state.
So, you know, Greg touched on something that's really, you know, right now we're in crisis management on a lot of these ag structures. And yet we're, and especially through this drought task force and trying to do things better, you know, we might have coming into some things that we can do things better with water, and we can have some water savings grants versus having water, you know, just the ability to keep running water. You know, the aging infrastructure is just a killer. And again, for us ranchers, we can barely have time to fix a tractor, come close to go down and fix the head gate. We run the dang thing until it breaks down, and then we figure out how we're gonna fix it. Meanwhile, we're lost. You know, these 2007 guidelines, I was on the Upper Yampa board at that point in time, and I don't know how those things got through. And, you know, we're so much, well, more involved in that, especially our roundtable. We've been beating ourselves up to make sure we have a voice. And I hope people are listening to us and not going through a 2007 process that arbitrarily got adopted. And then when we, oh, well, you didn't say anything. Well, I didn't know anything to say anything. So I think now we're much more familiar with the high points and the low points of the 2007 guidelines. And I hope people are listening to it, because we're paying attention. And I guarantee you the Yampa White Green, we have a position paper on it. I'm sure you've seen it and the rest. Jeff and Tom done a great job putting that thing together, and I think it represents some of the better interests of the states negotiating. So I just wanted to say.
Yeah,
those couple
no, I mean,
points.
thank you for paying attention, honestly. I mean, the federal processes can just seem horribly, I don't know, bureaucratic and awful, but we really need the input of you all on the ground to inform, you know, how we carry forward and negotiate that. Becky and Amy Ostick and that whole team have been trying to do, they're calling it a roadshow, where they're hitting all the roundtables.
They hit our
table.
table,
Yeah,
yep,
but yeah.
yep.
So, you know, if you ever want them to come out to an event, reach out. They're trying not to say no to anybody and really open up the conversation and take input from folks on the ground that are living it. So appreciate your interest, and thanks for paying attention.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Lauren, we would like to thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming and for visiting with us. And I don't know if you have
It's
any
my pleasure.
final comments, but our doors are always open.
Yeah, I mean, I just really appreciate the open dialogue, and I truly want to hear, you know, I think when you're in roles like this, you get the credit and the blame, mostly the blame, but I want to hear from y'all, so please feel free to reach out. I mean it. I don't have new business cards, but my information hasn't changed. Zane and Andy both know how to get a hold of me, so please, if you hear something that doesn't sound right, reach out. If you want to yell at me, reach out and do that too. I try and be available. And I'll probably see Kathleen at the Capitol here, as we're coming up on legislative season, Andy and Zane too, sadly. But yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for the invite. I know Greg and I really appreciate the opportunity to connect and just not be faces or names on a screen. So just really appreciate you and all the work that you all do.
Thank you.
Can you guys hear me?
Hi,
Jackie. Sorry, I've been trying to chat you that I just had one quick comment, if you don't mind. No?
Yep.
Oh, awesome. Okay. I just wanted to say thanks to Greg and Lauren for being there and for you guys inviting us. And I don't know how often you listen to our board meetings, but we have been working on our public comment abilities to make it easier for people to weigh in subject by subject without going through the clunky process of filling out a form or contacting Viola in advance. And then just wanted to extend the invite if you find yourself in Denver for our next November board meeting to, come in and talk to our board too. I don't know, Lauren, if you said that. I did step out a couple times while you all were conversing, but I just wanted to say that we would love to have any members of your staff or board at our meetings as we travel across the state and hear from you on issues important to your individual counties or the River District in general. So I hope that you'll take advantage of that as we go forward. And thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Jackie. Thanks. I'm sorry we missed your chats. Thanks for speaking up. All right, let's take a 10-minute break. And then when we come back, Audrey is going to kind of get us lined out for our evaluations of our
Peter, you might want to stop.
You don't want us to be hungry while we're talking.
That's right. We want you to be well fed.
Angry.
No angry. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
good.
right. Yeah. Hey, it worked.
All right. Well, Taylor is on our way back in, but we've asked Audrey to sort of.
Yeah, I mean, first we need to get into executive session part before I do, or did you want me to do that in public session?
I think you could do it in public session, but what we will be doing and what the process is, and then we'll get into executive session.
All right, well, I just wanted to give you all a little overview through this personnel review process that was a little bit different than what we had done in years past. So Peter and Andy each wrote up their confidential self-evaluations and sent that out to you. It was different in the sense that I didn't send out a message requesting board comments, compiling those comments and sending them out. And the reason being is that over the last several years, I haven't really received much or very few comments back. Sometimes they're just general overview comments. And so we really wanted to provide, a venue for a productive and effective conversation that you all could have with your two employees. Still wanted to have the opportunity for them to provide you with the information on their self-assessment challenges or successes of the year. Forward thinking, what's coming up, and then also kind of talking about professional development opportunities for themselves and their teams. And so you all received, other than Tom until this morning, a copy of each of their self-evaluations. I would encourage you all to have that open dialogue and provide any feedback to Andy and Peter today during the executive session for their personnel evaluations. And then I also wanted to say, things this year is a little bit different on the salary review. So, and the board has a couple options. We do not yet have the final published data that we rely on to kind of come up with our salary increase pool. We've talked in the past about our matrix that we use as a merit-based increase for our employees. We have sort of the average that we plug in, and then depending on where individuals are at in their performance and their where they're at within their salary range, then we have a formula for a percentage increase. So I did include a 5% increase average in the budget. We discussed at the budget workshop that we would update that number once we had the final published data. Employers Council, who's the resource that we use for that, has they told me that they've gone through some restructuring and it is taking them longer to publish their data. So it's been collected, not yet published, so they won't give it to me. So the board could use that 5% guide if you'd like. You could make a decision on setting their 2024 salaries today. Or there's also an opportunity, we will have another meeting, as we discussed this morning, to adopt a 2024 budget. Once we know the outcome of Proposition HH, and certainly by then I will have the final salary rate or salary pool number. So you could wait, and it is for 2024 salaries, so you have time. But we usually set it now since it's typically your last meeting. So I just wanted to tee that up for you all. I'm happy to provide more information, answer any questions, or help in any other way.
So I'm going to suggest that we go into executive session now. Ask Audrey any questions that we have of her. We'll ask Andy and Peter to leave, and we can discuss as a board the self-evaluations and our comments. And then if it's all right with you both, we'll invite you back in one at a time and have a conversation with you.
It's certainly fine.
So do we want to answer her question regarding the salaries first?
I was thinking maybe we would do that in executive
Okay.
session, if that's all right with everyone.
Either way.
If you were ready, Madam Chair, if you were wanting to talk about the personnel matters, I would make the recommendation that the board convene into executive session to pursuant to CRS section 24-6-402 Red 4F. Some of those executive session discussions may constitute attorney-client communications or matters that are subject to negotiation as well, given the tasks that Andy and I's job entails. So that executive session could also be encompassed under 402 4B and E. That would be my recommendation.
All right, do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All right, moved by Vandenbrink, second by Whitmore. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are in executive session.
Let's get everybody out of the meeting, and then Peter